What's up, everyone, and welcome to Clear Talk. Let me pull my mic a little bit closer. All right, yeah, so we have breaking news. We had heard for earlier this week that there was a possibility, that stuff was going down with the Democratic Party. A lot of people pushing for Biden to end his campaign or whatever, to bow out, drop out. And it had been reported that he was, under consideration, especially after he got COVID and everything else, that he was going that we would know before the end of the weekend. And it is Sunday, and it is been reported first thing this morning that he is dropping out. He released a letter that I have here pulled up, and we can read through it and talk about it, what it says and stuff. But yeah, it's official that he's dropping out. So let's see. Let's go over the contents here. I've got it pulled up here in the New York Times. So it just states Joseph R. Biden Jr. Um, July 21st, today. My fellow Americans, for the past 3.5 years, we have made great progress as a nation. Today, America has the strongest economy in the world. We've made historic investments in rebuilding our nation and lowering prescription drug costs for seniors and expanding affordable health care to a record number of Americans. We've provided critically needed care to 1 million veterans exposed to toxic substances, passed the first gun safety laws in 30 years, appointed the first African American woman to the Supreme Court, and passed the most significant climate legislation in the history of the world. America has never been better positioned to lead than we are today. Okay, so just immediately stating accomplishments and stuff that he's been harping on for a while now. And some of those are legitimately, well, yeah, most of those are legitimately good. But I know none of this could have been done without you, the American people. Together, we overcame a once in a century pandemic and the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. We've protected and preserved our democracy, and we've revitalized and strengthened our alliance around the world. It has been the greatest honor of my life to serve as your president, and while it has been my intention to seek re-election, I believe it is in the best interest of my party and the country for me to stand down and to focus solely on fulfilling my duties as president for the remainder of my term. I will speak to the nation later this week in more detail about my decision. For now, let me express my deepest gratitude to all those who have worked so hard to see me reelected. I want to thank Vice President Kamala Harris for being an extraordinary partner in all this work. And let me express my heartfelt appreciation to the American people for the faith and trust you have placed in me. I believe today what I always have, that there is nothing America can't do. When we do it together, we just have to remember we are the United States of America. So, there it is. Officially, him announcing that he is not uh, not going to seek reelection. And we have been, this has been talked about. This has been, we've had all kinds of the Democratic senators and elites and stuff. We had heard big donors were pulling some strings and everything behind, pushing and pushing and pushing him to bow out, and they finally convinced him. Uh, so this is, now, of course, he will have an official uh, announcement to the nation at some point. But here it is. He was no longer a secret election. So now we have the process of, who takes his place. Um, and that one is a very interesting in what's going to happen going forward. We still have a couple weeks before the convention, and so I don't know what strings are trying to be pulled. Legally, the only one who actually has access to his delegates and the campaign chest and stuff for his election is Kamala because she is on the ticket. Um, but I know or have heard and seen, and there's a lot apparently in the establishment and the um, DNC and stuff who do not want Kamala. There are some that back her, but some that don't. Some that are pushing very hard for other candidates, governors and stuff like that, to actually be on there. But the legalities of that and how they could maneuver stuff around to actually place and create a whole completely different ticket is it's a little out there, and it's not, and I don't believe it's going to come without some type of legal like um, issues and even coming from the Republican side. There's very good chance that they're going to try to actually put lawsuits against it and whatever, especially if Kamala is not the one to take it over. There will be less of a. I mean, they're still probably going to try to question legalities and stuff if she was to take it. And I'm sure there's the only thing that really could go about is how she takes it or something. But um, and if this had went down like at the convention, it probably would have been a bigger thing. But since he is like releasing this, and it appears to have been like he is like giving it over. He's not being forced out, or at least not in some type of process, a timeline or something like event. Uh, this actually looks better in this case, especially if Kama was to take over. So probably the legalities of it would be even. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not a legal expert or anything, but from what I understand, um, and have heard this, it would be a harder thing to fight if she just took the ticket. Like he released the delegates to her, and she took the delegates or whatever. Um, and at least there would be some sort of like argument to a process, like a process there, some sort of democratic process there. I mean, if he had, you could look at it, if he had won the presidency and then something happened, she would have to take over anyway because she is the vice president. I kind of feel like the same sort of idea here to some degree. Like I said, the legalities, I don't know how that all works out, but I mean, you could argue he's stepping down, she's just taking his place as far as the ticket is concerned. If that was the case, if that happens to be the case. Um, so I feel like the legal like issue there would be harder to fight, even from the Republicans. But if something completely else happened and she was removed and there was a completely different person, or even whatever president and vice president pick put up that was not Kamala, I feel like there's going to be some big legal challenges and stuff coming um, from all different directions, maybe even, but particularly from the Republicans, um, to make this to make it as hard as possible and make it easier for Trump to actually just win the presidency. I think that is, and that's one of the concerns that AOC come out with. She came out with a video. I believe it was yesterday or the day before, or I think maybe it was the day before. There she basically had a live thing, and she broke down all the reasons why she had been harping and like focused on trying to keep uh, Biden in there. And it was, and it one of the reasons was because of the legality issues, and that outside of the fact that she felt like nobody was that the plan wasn't really being expressed. If there is a plan, like if there was some sort of plan for all of this, it wasn't being like expressed to everybody. And she being in these meetings and whatnot, she was feeling like something was either being hidden or they just straight up didn't know what the plan was. And they were basically just, running off of, winging it basically. But and whenever she questioned, all the points and the legalities of it and everything else, she couldn't get a clear answer from anybody. And so she felt like it was, best thing was just to support and push and continue to push him, because at least there would be no legal issues coming from the Republicans, which she had heard was going to be the thing, is if they tried to do anything at the convention, that they were going to push stuff, and she didn't want the legal part to be falling on the Supreme Court, where most certainly with a highly conservative Supreme Court right now that was uh, put in place by Trump, that there was no way that they were not going to side to benefit Trump. So that was one of the issues she had been bringing up, along with a few others. And to some degree, for me, when I watched over, and I didn't watch the whole thing, but I watched certain parts of it. Um, some of her arguments did actually make some sense. So and it made me feel a little bit more understanding of why her, and I'm assuming a lot of the other part of the squad and stuff, the progressive left, was doing the same type of stuff, or was doing the same support um argument for Biden. That was probably the underlining reasons, um even from probably Bernie himself too. They just weren't speaking out on it, but finally AOC kind of built the tea, as they say, and uh, let everybody know what was the up and up, which I have a lot of respect for in that. Even if I don't completely agree with her all the time, and maybe not, and I wasn't completely understanding why they were doing that. At least the reasons she gave made some sense. They were reasonable, um, and brought up concerns that, even a few concerns that I hadn't thought of. I don't think a lot of people had thought of, because they don't know the back room meetings and talks and things that are coming about. One of our other issues is that it's most of the talk and rhetoric and issue around this, was it was constantly going back to donors, 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 like worried about what donors, thought. She said, yeah, there were some people, a couple people that would bring up about the voters, but the majority of it was like donors, 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 donors. Our donors want something different. Our donors want it. She's like, she's not one to care about donors. So that was one of her issues too. So it uh, this is interesting, to say the least. And what happens going forward, up to the convention, and who's going to be announced, or how who's going to take over the ticket, and um, and where we go from there. Because like she also pointed out, most people are thinking that the elections in November, but the election actually starts within the next month. I mean, early votes and stuff that are sent in, by mail and whatever, that starts just a few weeks, 2 to 3 weeks or so after, after the convention. So we're only like 4 or 5 weeks out from like early votes and stuff being cast by people. So it's making sure that people understand that there's a different ticket now is important, and that they feel like it's a ticket that they can get behind is important, um, to make sure that Trump does not get back in office. Um, and it's a legitimate ticket, something people can actually get excited about. And there's argument back and forth between whether or not Harris is that exciting, you know person to take over, and the question of her electability, um, and that a lot of people have argued that there's several different governors and stuff that they feel would be more electable, because they're more popular. But I don't feel like that is completely the case, because when you think about the entire electorate and how, there's so much of the electorate that isn't always engaged. Um, they go off of name recognition and stuff like that. So a lot of them will recognize her name over a certain governor of a certain state or whatever. They may be popular, and there might be a good percentage of the electorate that has somewhat heard of them, but it would be that a percentage of electorate that is more politically engaged. Um, so when you start looking at the electorate that's not, and then also looking at the independents and whatnot, that which is the even bigger concern. I don't know that the argument that her not being electable, or not being as electable as some governors, or some popular governors or whatever, I'm not sure that that really holds. But I would like to see who she would pick as VP. I think that is even more important. Um, in making the case for it being successful and being exciting. So that is going to be my issue. I feel like probably is the more electable. I don't particularly like her, but I also feel like, um, I mean, at the very worst, it would just be status quo, pretty much what Biden would have been. But she does have tendencies to be a little bit more left, um, open, I guess, than even Biden at times. So and a little bit easier on stuff that I feel is important right now, and that's foreign policy. I feel like she's a little bit better, possibly, on foreign policy. Now, how she could be influenced by, you know, members or whatever that may be in the, um, that she might would have in her uh, cabinet or whatever. I don't know, but uh, but I don't see any. There was always a big question mark with anybody else getting there that um, may not. You just may not know exactly how they will be. So, but I don't know. We'll see what happens going forward. Like I said, legally, she's the easiest. But a lot of people are not behind her. So I don't know what's gonna happen. But that's the leaking breaking news. Biden is out. Um, and I think we saw this coming. I wish it would have come earlier. I wish it would have already happened. It should have already happened. He should have never even seeked reelection, in my opinion. Um, I feel like if they would have just set up with her or something like that, or even somebody, or just had a actual primary, because they didn't. I mean, if they just had a legitimate primary and allow people to get the landscape, and have proper debates and everything else, that something a way more uh substantial and unifying, and even a stronger ticket would have been established at this point, and would have been, Trump may not even have been an issue right now, that like he is. So anyways, but we'll see. Thank you very much. And that's it. This has been Clear Talk. Later.